This is your host, Tia. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Top 10. Live. Geek Vibes Nation. Geek Vibes Nation. The Top 10. The Top 10. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Top 10 by Geek Vibes Nation. I'm your host, Tia, and I have with me, as always, the amazing Brittany, which kind of sounds like a circus act. So how are you doing this morning, Brittany?
I like how Tia will totally tear me a new one, but the moment the podcast starts, she's like, oh, she's so great and wonderful. I see you, girl. I see you.
This comes from the Twitcher who talks smack on her streams all the time.
Twitcher, oh my god! I
You
told
called yourself a Twitcher last night, so
it's so funny. I was telling them as a side note, in the stream, I said what people think it's like as a female streamer on Twitch, where it's like, oh, my lady, fedoras, simping, all this stuff. I said what it is, and them telling me I had a big ass forehead and that I had a 5 head instead of a forehead.
See, that's just mean. It's like we want to have this like culture where everyone's like nicer to each other, and then we have like this subculture where it's literally like how much shit talking can you do and blah blah blah. And it's like that's not nice. That doesn't progress our society in any sort of way. So I don't like that. No one should say that you have a 5 head. I will go fight them. As someone who leads the 5 head support group,
I was just like, I said what they really think, and I said, y'all are the most toxic, untoxic people I have ever met, and they're like, you wouldn't change it, right? And I'm like, that's gonna be a hard pass.
Brittany likes to talk smack and be all tough and be like, fight me, you ho, blah, 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 meet you outside. But in reality, and like in her like core, she's very sensitive. She'll be like, this one person said that this, and it's like, Brittany, that's so small.
An emotional soul.
She talks a lot of smack for someone who's very soft. But no, I love you. We've gotten way off track right now, but this is the top 10, and because it is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the moms, the mom figures, grandmas, aunts, and all that. I hope that you are all relaxing right now during your quarantine, and go make the man do something for once. No, yes, actually, let me not even say no. I'm not going to apologize for that. You make him treat you right today. But happy Mother's Day to everyone. I personally had a bit of a scary experience with my mom this week. She was hospitalized for a few days out of this week. She's okay. It had nothing to do with COVID-19, thank God. And she's home now and she is resting, so it may be unlikely that I see her today. But happy Mother's Day, because I say this with all my heart that she is literally the best mom on the face of the frickin' planet. But Brittany, I don't know if your mom listens to this. We know that my mom is like the number one fan, or at least maybe the only listener. But do you have anything to say to your mom right now while we're on air? I'm going to put you on the spot.
I guess she's all right. She kind of gave birth to me. No, I'm just joking. She's the best. She's helped me with everything. Well, first off, she gave me life. So, that's pretty cool. And then on the other, she's also the most ruthless lady I've ever met, and I wish I could embody at least, 10% of that viciousness, that assertiveness. But no, what I always love about my mom is that she, I always ask Mom because she knows how to do everything. I said, how did you learn all this? She goes, I got tired of waiting on your dad. So now I know everything. I'm like, oh, okay. I need some of that, Mom.
You definitely do. No, I really quick story before we move on. I will never forget this because I have this friend Claire, right? And I won't say last names, but I have this friend Claire, and we've been friends for quite some time since I worked at a bakery back in from 18 to 22, right? So anywhere in that spectrum. And when she first started working at the bakery, I didn't really know her. I actually went to school with her brother. And so, I didn't really know how she would be, if she would be any way like her brother. So there was one shift where the two of us ended up having to work together because at the bakery that I worked at, it was a common thing that people like to walk out literally on other people's shifts because it was just that type of environment. So I got called in because someone quit during Claire's shift. And so I went in and I'm just standing with Claire, we're not talking to each other or anything. And I remember it was a few days before Mother's Day. So me just trying to make small talk. I go, oh, so Claire, what are you getting your mom for Mother's Day? And without skipping a beat, she goes, well, for this Mother's Day, I figured I'd try not to be such a bitch to her. And I was just and I remember that was the moment that I was like, I like you. We're going to be friends.
I'm afraid it's going to be a moment where they're, when you make a yo mama joke and they're like, well, my mom's dead. And you're like, oh, okay. So I'm so happy it was that instead.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm so happy. I was like, I could feel my guts tighten. I was like, oh, no. And then just this utter sense of relief when you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to try to be less of a bitch. I'm like, okay.
I just thought that was hilarious. And I knew that her mother was still alive because, again, I went to school with her brother, so I knew that. I don't think I would have asked if it was any other way, but yeah.
She killed over from her daughter actually being nice for once.
Sometimes that's the greatest gift of all. I definitely know that there was at some point during my teen years where I don't think I had that overly rebellious phase where we didn't get along at all, but I definitely was cranky. Because you're like, God, Ma. But
I like that you almost do this Southern Belle accent when you're like, Ma, whenever you're saying stuff like that. I'm like, girl, come down here.
Oh, you are the least Southern sounding Southerner. And the only way that you know that you're a Southerner is because your experiences and mindset and outlook is very Southern, but your your voice and diction is not Southern. You even said yourself that sometimes people will be like, oh, so where are you from? And it's from town.
I was just about to say that because there's two brothers that I work with, right? Mm-hmm. And I've only been at the job for about a month, or a little over a month now, right? And one of them finally stopped. He said, where are you from? I said, Arkansas. And he said, what part of Arkansas? And I said, and he said, I said, where did you think I was from? He said, I'm from Chicago. He goes, I thought you were from up north. He goes, you don't sound Southern. Which of course I countered with, what the hell are you doing here?
I wonder that too every time you tell me that a non-Arkansan is in Arkansas. I'm like, what are you doing there? There's nothing there.
But just as a side note too, before we continue, Florida gets a lot of New York retirees, right? we get a lot of California, like California, like people from California, and I'm like,
To me,
man,
that makes no sense because you have California that's very progressive and liberal and very vegan and all that with beaches, and Arkansas, there's no beaches. Definitely not liberal, definitely
I
not progressive,
just like
and
our
definitely not. And salads are like Arkansans' worst enemy. So
right.
sure.
In a small town. I was gonna say that I think it's because our climate is mild. We have mild summers and mild winters. So, and it's like a different. We have a lot of like retirement communities, which are like these really nice like towns that are just full of old people. We got old towns, Tia.
Oh, as far as the weather, it is humid as shit there. Like I remember one time going there in like May or something, and in New York it was still pretty cold, and I was thinking to myself, oh, it'd be nice to go down to Arkansas. It's going to be obviously warmer there, blah, blah, blah. As soon as we left the airport, it was like the wave of humidity almost choked me. I was like, we do not get humidity like that.
We have some humid days. Like, it's not bad. Like lately, it's like the weather is great, but if it sprinkles outside and it's hot, you're like, oh no, get out the humid. Da, da, da.
Oh my God. But let's I love that. But let's get to the actual list. And of course before we do that, I have a message from a friend of the podcast, which I was thinking about. I was like, right now is really good, like a really good time to catch up on podcasts. Obviously, you should be listening to our podcast first and foremost. But after that, you can check out Stranger Damies, which is the real play D&D podcast from the main Damie family of podcasts. And you can join them every Wednesday as the wild stallions traverse the many traps and tribulations that is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There are elves, weird half-dragon people, conspiracies to uncover, and of course more references to the 1980s than Ready Player One. Make sure you subscribe to them on all podcast services by searching Stranger Damies, and you can follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Stranger Damies. And of course, Stranger Damies and the main Damie family are a part of Geek Vibes Nation. You could, of course, follow us at geekvibesnation.com. It's so awesome. I don't know if you listen to their podcast. They call this a movie, but Dan always shouts out the top 10. So that's really nice. And he actually like keeps up with what we are doing every week because he'll like throw that in. He'll be like, oh, this week they did this. And I'm like, that's so nice. Really?
Care about something.
Really quick. I did feel bad. So on Friday, we did a game show, the one that I've been telling you about, Brittany, where we do it over Zoom. And so Juwan had given us a bunch of, like, he had given us homework, which we all love homework, but he gave us a bunch of, like, questions, and I wrote them all down, right? So he did the first round, and he did the first question, and I was, like, say, the first person. Then he went, like, blah, 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 blah. There was, like, about 6 of us, right? So then the next question, he went out of order with the list. He did, like, number 5 or something. It threw me off. And then he went, he did Will first, who is from Scene and Nerd, another podcast that you should absolutely listen to. And then he did Dan. And so I put in the group chat, I was like, you went out of order. But I didn't mean, like, the people. I meant, like, the questions. And Juwan was like, oh, that's because Will and Dan have to leave soon. And Dan's like, oh, I'm so sorry. But because they thought I was like saying like, oh, you didn't go to me. And I was like, wow, I feel like such a jerk. Like I would never be like, you didn't go to me first.
I hate that, like, especially when you're trying to do something through text and, like, so your, what's it, not affliction, inflection? Like, the flexion of your voice, like, can't really, like, show it, so, like, your text is just blunt. Like, my mom does that. My mom's, like, the most blunt texter, and I'm like, dude, you gotta throw some smileys or some shit in there. I don't know what you're doing.
That's how I feel with Kanan sometimes. So like ask a question. I feel like literally I have committed a crime because of the way that I like, because it's very just like matter of fact. And I'm like, oh God. But
And they're like, stop, you criminal scum. And you're like, oh.
Exactly. Let's kick off this list. So I'm going to do something a little different, Brittany, because my mom said that I should, and it's Mother's Day, so I'm going to listen to my mom. And I'm actually going to go first. That way, then you can get the number one spot. So this is our top 10 best moms in TV and movies. So, whatever. And I'm going to start off my number 10 simply, and it's ironic because this character is someone that a lot of people say reminds them of my mom, and it's going to be Linda Belcher from Bob's Burgers. Because, and I know this is like an anime thing, but I love Bob's Burgers, first of all. I can watch that over and over and over again. And I love Linda Belcher. She is certainly outrageous. She is definitely a character. But in the end, she cares for her kids like nobody's business. She will literally become like Mama Bird and just defend them to the death. I remember, oh God, what was this one episode where, like, anytime it's revealed that someone is like talking shit about her kids or something like that, she instantly like flies off the handle. Like, she will not take that at all, even though like her kids can definitely be little cretins. She absolutely loves them. She supports Tina. Like, that's the thing. All her kids are so, like, unique, but she supports them. Like, she supports Tina in how strange she is. Gene as, his, like, music career and, not career, but, like, his, he loves to play on that keyboard, right? And he's always saying, like, I'm a girl, and you never hear her say, like, anything, like, against that, right? Like, if Gene wants to go wax his legs, she's in support of it. If Gene wants to do this, she's in support of it. And even Louise, as like crazy as she can be, she still tries to find a way to, be that close to Louise, even if, say, they're so different and Louise isn't, say, a mommy's girl. I just love Linda. Like, I feel that every episode is such a like example of how amazing of a mother she is. Like, really quick before I pass it to you, like, I remember this one episode, which was they were doing like a turkey race instead of sitting at home waiting for Bob to make the turkey. And these wild turkeys like took over the freaking town, and her kids were stuck on this ride, and she like trekked all these freaking turkeys that were trying to attack them, because she was like, I need to get back to my babies and I need to save them. And I'm like, I just love this mother like so much. So I think Linda is a great example of a good TV mom, and I felt that why not start the list with her. So, Brittany, what do you think about Linda Belcher?
I was gonna say, it was so funny because like she was on my list too, but I was I know. No, it's okay, because I was like, she reminds me so much of your mom, like, but in the best way, in the best way. Because you gotta imagine, also for me, like I had never really been out of the South. Like, being in the North was, for the first time, was with you, and like hearing like the way that people talk like was so like new and foreign to me. I was like, this is great, and I get that kind of feel from her, from Linda Belcher. I'm like, I love it. I love it. What episode I really remember that really stuck out to me is where, say Louise isn't such a mommy's girl. And like, I was thinking about how much she cared to want her daughter to like her and to just want to feel like she had that mother-daughter connection with her, and trying to like form that with her. I don't know why that episode made me so sad. I'm glad it had a happy ending. But I was just thinking about, like, oh, it's kind of like whenever babies are little and they only say, like, dad and they won't say mom, or, like, vice versa. And you're like, just say it. You're breaking your mama's heart. Just
Oh,
say
is that the one? Is that the one where she tried to take Louise to that like mommy workshop
yeah,
that was like
yeah.
that was held by a dude? And I know what you're talking about because I remember at some point where Linda is like, I just wish you liked me, and I was like, what? I want to die.
I know, it was so sad. And didn't, like, finally Louise feel like, oh, of course I like you. I just like Dad better.
Yeah, no, I think like Louise like made it like, I still love you, like you're my mom. It's okay that we don't spend like say the time that you and Tina do. Like that doesn't mean like I love you any less. It's kind of like, let's just stop trying to be fit into like a mold or something. I mean, definitely like Linda has to learn her boundaries because was one episode where she felt like she was losing Tina when Tina was like making friends and she was like grasping on too hard, which was like pushing Tina away like further, and they had like obviously a very good moment at the end. But I think that was like supposed to symbolize obviously what probably most moms go through, feeling like say their daughter is like their best friends, they hang out, blah blah blah, and then the daughter reaches an age where they want to hang out with their own friends and it's like, oh God, I'm losing them. It's like you're not losing them, it's just that's just natural progression.
I know, it's kind of like my dad, speaking of that, kind of like it's with my dad. It was like I was such a daddy's girl, like such a daddy's girl, such a daddy's girl. And then like, when he worked at a power plant, well, a nuclear plant. And so he would work really long hours. So, mom was the one that did everything. And I can remember even now my dad's like, I just want you to be a daddy's girl again. Why can't you just be a daddy's girl? I'm like, Dad, it's okay. It's okay. I can be both.
And parents are like, no, you can't. But
One or the other.
you can only choose one. I feel like that's how Linda feels sometimes, but I'm happy that it was on both our lists just to prove how much Linda is amazing. What is your number 9, Brittany?
I'm gonna go with, even though it's like controversial at this point, uh, because of what happened later on, it's still like, okay, this is a case of separating the art from the artist, but I really like
Mm.
Roseanne growing up. Like, to me, she was such a great mom. Like, I don't know, did you watch Roseanne growing up?
I used to love watching Roseanne, and I hated that everything did end up happening with Roseanne in real life because it kind of ruined it for me. But no, I completely understand what you mean.
But to me, it was like, it's been so long since I've seen Roseanne, but I remember she was such like first off, her and what was his name, Dan, like her husband's name. I'm trying to think of what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
I'm trying to remember. God, it's been so long, and I know I'm just kind of like pulling this, but it was because when I was sitting there, I was like, what moms did I love growing up? Roseanne, she had her big family. She could be fierce. She could be loud. She could be, all these things and above. But she ultimately was always a good mother and would always like, those hard lessons, when her daughter got pregnant, watching the kids grow up with each other. And her and Dan's like loving relationship together was like goals. Because like even though she was loud and boisterous, he was like always there for her, which I could add him as one of the greatest dads too. But I don't know. I don't know exactly how to put my finger on it on this one, Tia. It was just that she was such a fun mom, and I always remembered, even in connection with my own mother, that was something that we would do so constantly. Is Roseanne would play in the mornings while I was getting ready for school, and me and Mom would watch it together and just watching and laugh and going, oh, yeah, Roseanne's so ridiculous, but like in a great way. And that's why it's hard seeing that be, kind of tarnished throughout the years because of everything that happened. Because sometimes people put their foot in their mouth, right? But she shoved the whole leg in her mouth. Some things you can play off and go, okay, well maybe they didn't quite mean it that way, right? Mm. No, that's not one that can be played off very easy to you. Not at all.
Not at all. Like when they did the reboot the revival and brought her back, it's like, oh, great, Roseanne. And then it just it went so far south, so quickly. And it was like, oh God, what are you doing, Roseanne? Please stop. Yeah, no, she put both feet in her mouth. And it did definitely for me ruin it a little. I don't think I could go back and say rewatch Roseanne, which sucks. But as far as the original run goes, no, I agree. I think what it was is that it was, Roseanne and her family say, I don't think fit the typical mold of what, say, sitcom families were at the time. Roseanne was very cranky and cantankerous, and the way she spoke with her kids, was not what you thought, that TV moms should. Because, you're used to freaking what was it, Married with Children, or, this and that. You're not the dainty. Okay, right? Every sitcom, the wife was this dainty little woman, and maybe she was a little snappy, but she was, fit and pretty and proper, huh?
And the ditzy one, the homemaker, the one that didn't go to... Yeah, no, I was going to agree with that. It's kind of since this is on my list, but, the Brady Bunch, the mom's always the beautiful homemaker wife, just all these things, which, that's fine and dandy, but it was Roseanne was very she was the smart one. She was the loud one. She was the angry one. She definitely wasn't no dainty flower.
Exactly. And I'm saying this because that is something that was actually said in an episode, so I'm not just saying this. I think she even called them either rednecks or white trash or something, but it wasn't that she owned it almost. That was their family and that was fine, her and Dan, their relationship was great. That. Okay, that is the thing that kills me with the revival, because if you go back and watch Roseanne, it was progressive for its time. Roseanne did not judge based on color, sexual orientation, anything. It was fairly liberal, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the revival and suddenly she's a right-wing, frickin' Trump supporter. And you're what happened here? I don't understand.
Well, I think what's hard is when, a lot of things normally play towards unbiasedness, right? And if they do bring in politics, it's a funny, almost oh, what's the word for it? A playful rivalry, say of King of the Hill, with Hank Hill. Yeah, you go, okay, he would be a certain way and he even has those moments where he doesn't understand stuff because that's part of his character. But to kind of shoehorn that into a revival instead of everything else, I don't know, it gets a little weird.
Well, also, I mean, right as Roseanne came out, it's that's when everything I feel was at the beginning. I think Trump had just been elected, tensions were insanely high. This was definitely during that time. So to have that and have that in Roseanne, that very